Hi guys, this is your channel Stat and Math Tutorials in a new video. Today I will show you a few ways to solve a quadratic equation. So let's start. So the standard form of quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is not equal to 0 and a, b, c are real numbers. So let's first start the first way, which is solving by factoring. But we need to distinguish two cases: when a is equals to 1 and when a is not equal to 1. So let's start with the first case, when a is equal to 1. So you need to find two numbers whose product equal to c and whose sum equal to b. So that's the way to factor a quadratic equation if a equals to 1. And it's gonna be more clear when we do concrete examples here. So let's look at the example number 1. So x squared plus x minus 2. So in this case, a is 1, the leading coefficient of x squared, b is 1, and c it's negative 2. So I need two numbers. When you multiply them by each other, you get negative 2, and when you add them together, you get 1. You get positive 1. So let's start with the list all the numbers that you multiply by each other and you get negative 2. So I can do negative 1 times 2, that's give me negative 2. I can do positive 1 and negative 2, and that's all I can do. So these two cases give me negative 2. So which of these two numbers, if I add them up, I get positive 1? Yes, so the first one is the right numbers. So if I add them up, I get positive 1. So 2 minus 1 is positive 1. So two numbers, you multiply by each other and you get c. You add them together and you get b. So now your equation can be factored out as x squared plus x minus 2. Minus 2, so here equals 0. So it can be factored out as x minus 1 x plus 2. So those are the two numbers who meet the requirement. So now using the zero product property, x minus 1 equals 0, or x plus 2 equals 0. So now you add 1 to both sides, you get x equals 1, or x equals negative 2. So those are your solution to the equation in example number 1. So it has two solutions, x equal 1 and x equal negative 2. Now let's look at the example number 2 using the same way. So find two numbers, their product equal to c and their sum equals to b. So same stuff here. So x squared minus 7x plus 12 equals 0. So c is 12. So list all the numbers. If I multiply them by each other, I get 12. So 1 times 12 negative 1 times negative 12. 3 times 4, negative 3 times negative 4. So add all these numbers together and see which two numbers will give you negative 7. Yes, so negative 3, negative 4 are my numbers, because when I add them together I get negative 7, and when I multiply them together I get positive 12. So the equation now can be factored out as, so x squared minus 7x plus 12 equals x minus 3 times x minus 4, and using the equals 0 and using the zero product property again here, so that's x minus 3 equals 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. Adding 3 to both sides, we get x equal 3, or x equal 4 when you add 4 to both sides. And those are my solution to the equation in this example. So now we are going to see what happens if a is not equal to 1, and that's the second case in the first way, solving by factoring. So if a is not equal to 0, not equals to 1, I mean, find two numbers whose product, I have two t's here, so whose product equals to, get rid of one t here. Okay, here you go. So find two numbers whose product equals AC and whose sum equal b. Then replace the bx term with the numbers you just found as a coefficient of x. So let's do a concrete example so you can better understand this discrete direction. So this example, 2x square minus 7x minus 4 equals 0. So a is 2, b is negative 7, and c is negative 4. So go ahead and multiply a by c, a times c, so that's 2 times negative 4, that's give me negative 8. Now find two numbers, if you multiply them by each other you get negative 8, and if you add them together you get negative 7. So negative 8 I can do 1 times negative 8, negative 1 times 8, I can do 2 times negative 4, and I can do negative 2 times 4. So which of these two numbers, if I add them together I get negative 7? That's right, the first one, 1 and negative 8. So if you add them together you get negative 7. Now you're gonna replace the b term with these two numbers as a coefficient of x. So you're gonna be 2x squared minus 7x, you're gonna replace it with negative 8x plus x minus 4 equals 0. So now you factor the first two terms. So 2x is a common factor. So x minus 4 plus x minus 4. And that's called factorization by groups. So now you see the new common factor, it's x minus 4. So x minus 4 times 2x plus 1 equals 0. Using the zero product rule, So that's x minus 4 equals 0, or 2x plus 1 equals 0. So that's mean x equal 4, or x equal negative 1/2. So subtracting 1 from both sides, then dividing both sides by 2. And these two numbers are my solutions to the equation in the problem above. So x equal 4 and x equal negative 1/2. So let's do one more example just to better understanding this way of solving a quadratic equation by factorization by groups. So let's do it the same way here. So A is 4, B it's 15, and C it's 9. So do A times C, I get 4 times 9, which is 36. Now list all the numbers. If you multiply them by each other, you get 36. So I can do 1 times 36, or negative 1 times negative 36, or I can do 4 times 9, or negative 4 times negative 9, or I can do 12 times 3, or negative 12 times negative 3. So now look at these numbers and see which two numbers, if you add them together, you get 15. So the only two numbers that meet this requirement is 12 and 3. So if you add them together, you get 15. So let's break down the b terms as 12x plus 3x. So 4x squared plus 15x plus 9 equals 0. So 4x squared plus 12x. So I'm breaking down the b terms, plus 3x plus 9 equals 0. Now factor the first two terms. So 4x is a common factor. So I get x here plus 3 plus, so factor the second terms. So 3 is a common factor, x plus 3. And now you can see x plus 3 is a common factor, a new common factor. So x plus 3 times x, 4x plus 3 equals 0. And now using the zero product property, so x plus 3 equals 0, or 4x plus 3 equals 0. So subtracting 3 from both sides, you get x equal negative 3, or x equal negative 3/4. So subtracting 3 from both sides and dividing both sides by 4, and that's your solution. So now another way of solving a quadratic equation is using the square root property. So the square root property, if you have x squared equals a, it's equivalent to x equals plus or minus square root of a. So that's the square root property. So let's use it to solve this couple examples. So the first one is 3x squared plus 1 equals 6. So the first thing you do, subtract 1 from both sides. So I get 3x squared equals 5. Divide both sides by 3, you get x squared equals 5/3. 5/3. And then using the square root property, so x equals plus or minus the square root of 5/3. So now let's look at the second example. So 2 times x minus 1 the whole time square minus 6 equals 0. So again, first thing, add 6 to both sides. So you get 2 times x minus 1 square equals 6. And now you divide both sides by 2, you get x minus 1 square equals 3. Using the square root property, you get x minus 1 equals plus or minus square root of 3. Then you add 1 to both sides and you're done. X equals 1 plus or minus square root of 3. And that's your solution to the equation in example number 2. So now let's look at the third way of solving quadratic equation, which call completing the square. So first of all, let's look at the steps. So the first step, move C to the right side. Second, divide both sides by A. Then add B over 2 square to both sides. Then solve by square root property. So these are the 4 steps you need to do to complete the square of a quadratic equation. And let's do a concrete example here. Example number 1. So 2x squared minus 8x minus 3 equals 0. So let's do the first step. So the first step, we move C to this side. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So 2x squared minus 8x equals 3. Second step, divide everything by 2, which is a, so I get x squared minus 4x equals 3/2. Now the third steps is adding b over 2 square. So adding b over 2 square, which in this case is negative 4 over 2 square, which is just 4. So I'm gonna add 4 to both sides. So x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 3/2 plus 4. So this can be factoring easily, which is x minus 2 square, and finding a common denominator here on this side. So that's 3 plus 8 is 11/2. Now using the property of square root, so you get x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 11/2. Then you add 2 to both sides and you're done. X equal to plus or minus the square root of 11/2. And that's your solution to the equation above. So let's do one more example and we can move on to another way of solving quadratic equation. So the second example is 3x squared plus 6x minus 2. So first steps, adding 2 to both sides. So we get 3x squared plus 6x equals 2. Second step, dividing both sides by 3. So we get x squared plus 2x equals 2/3. Third steps, adding b over 2 squared. So adding b over 2 squared, in this case, is 2 over 2, which is just 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides here. Yes, so add 1 to both sides here. So x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 2/3 plus 1. And factor out this first equation. So it's going to be x plus 1 squared. Find the common denominator here, which is 3. So 2 plus 3 is 5/3. And use the square root property. So x plus 1 equals plus or minus square root of 5/3. Subtract 1 from both sides, and voila, -1 plus or minus square root of 5/3. And that's your solution. Another easy way to solve a quadratic equation, it's called the quadratic formula. Using the quadratic formula, and so the standard form of quadratic equation, it's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is not equal to 0 and a, b, c are real numbers. So the quadratic formula is x equal and negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and the whole thing divided by 2a. So let's apply this formula and solve this couple examples. So the first one, it's x squared plus x minus 2. So let's list my a, b, c's here. So a, it's 1, b, it's 1, and c, it's -2. So the formula says x equals negative b. So negative b is going to be -1 plus or minus square root of b squared, it's 1 squared, minus 4 times ac. So a is 1 and c, it's -2. And the whole thing divided by 2a, which is 2 times 1. And now let's simplify a little bit. So -1 plus or minus 1 square plus 4 times 2, -4 times -2, that's give me +8, plus 1, it's square root of 9, divided by 2. So I get -1 plus or minus 3 over 2. The square root of 9 is 3. So the first solution is x equals -1 minus 3 divided by 2. So that's -4 divided by 2, which is -2. Second equation, it's x equal -1 plus 3 divided by 2, which is 2 divided by 2, and that's 1. So the solution of this equation is -2 and 1. So let's look at another example. So another example, 3x squared plus 2x minus 2 equals 0. And again, let's list a, b, c. So in this case, a is 3, b is 2, and c it's -2. So x equals negative b negative 2 plus or minus b square, it's 2 square, minus 4 times AC, so times 3 times negative 2, and divide by negative 2a, which not negative 2a, divide by 2a, which is 2 times 3. Now we can simplify. So negative 2 plus or minus, here we have 4, and here we have negative 4 times negative 6, which is positive 24, plus 4, it's square root of 28, divide by 6. And square root of 28 is so negative 2 plus or minus, so 28 can be written as 4 times 7, divide by 6. So the square root of 4 is 2, so we get negative 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 7, divide by 6. And now we can simplify more and divide denominator and numerator by 2. So we get negative 1 plus or minus square root of 7 over 3. And that's my solution to the given equation. So as you see, the quadratic formula contains the square root, and we all know the domain of the square root is all positive numbers. So sometimes you get a negative number under the root. So you can conclude there is no real solution to that equation, but the equation has a solution in complex numbers. So let's do just an easy example here with complex numbers, just to have some idea and an idea how to solve equation in Q, which is the set of complex numbers. So here A it's 1, B it's 1, and C it's 1. So x equals negative b, which is negative 1, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so it's 1 square, minus 4 times AC, so times 1 times 1, the whole thing divided by 2a, so 2 times 1 is 2. So now you can see I have negative number under the root, so negative 1 plus or minus negative 3, so 1 minus 3 minus 4, it's negative 3, divided by 2. So there is no solution in R. In R, which is real numbers, but there is solution in Q, which is the complex numbers. So one of the property of the complex numbers, it's I square, it's negative 1. So I'm gonna substitute I square for negative 1 under the root. So we have x equal negative 1 plus or minus 3i square, and take the square root of that, divide by 2. And now the square root of I square, it's I, so we get negative 1 plus or minus I square root of 3 divide by 2, and that's my two solutions in Q. So the set of complex numbers. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will pause here and continue the next video. Thank you for watching.